Hello, my name is Vivi Kieffer and I welcome you to Aletheia Art. Today we will speak about a woman. Actually, I have with me Bronia Krause. She is Polish and she has lived during Auschwitz, during the Second World War. It's a terrible honor for us to have her living testimony of the atrocities she has lived. Now she lives in Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic, which made it possible for us to interview her. Bronia, welcome to our television space, your television space.
Thank you.
We are very touched by your willingness to speak to us about your experience in Auschwitz.
Mm-hmm.
For the people to understand what is Auschwitz, Auschwitz is a concentration camp where more than 1,100,000 people has lost their lives, mainly Jewish, also intellectuals of Poland, and homosexuals at large, also war prisoners. So many people, so many lives that have been lost. Just 200,000 have been saved from this camp, and you are one of these 200,000. This concentration camp existed from May 1940 to January 1945, where the Red Army, the Soviet Red Army, saved and made it possible for the prisoners to get out of this camp. Bronia, explain me, how do you land in this camp? How come a woman does end up in a concentration camp?
All right. Well, first of all, let me track back a little. Before even Auschwitz, when the war broke out, is it okay to say that?
Of course.
Of course, when the Germans came in, we were right away confined to a ghetto. And that was in Poland. Immediately they came and they looted everything. They took all our possessions and we couldn't go anywhere. We were restricted to be at a certain place, which is called a ghetto.
Right.
Okay. At that point, we had no more food and we couldn't go out. And the worst thing that I remember as a child is when they took all the Jewish people who were Orthodox and they smashed them to the floors and they tore their beards out with their hands. So that was the first cruelty that I witnessed. Of course, in the ghetto, we were there for about 2 years and managed somehow. But at the same time, I happened to come back from summer camp, and I took sick and I was operated for my appendix in a Polish hospital, and they treated me very well. I was extremely sick because the surgeon said, I'll do my best and the rest is up to God. So I survived one battle already. So I guess I must be a born survivor.
Yeah, I guess you are, definitely.
Exactly.
That's for sure.
But with that thing that they had to go home because of the war, I am still suffering with hernias until today, 75 years later.
True.
Right.
Okay.
So no matter how you get over your experiences, there is always a scar. When you have an operation, you always are left with a scar. It only depends how deep it is and how you want to go and, just continue on that process, which I don't. That's not my nature. So
What is not your nature? To continue on the process.
not to be angry. One angry person doesn't get another person angry. It doesn't make sense. It's best to make peace, even if you know that you are right. You do the best you can to keep peace. Because if with wars would bring peace, we wouldn't have so many wars. So obviously it doesn't do anything.
True.
Right? So for my survival, I believe unconsciously that I am a peaceful person, and that helps you get along with people, no matter what people. Keeps you going.
True.
Put it that way. But after that ghetto, we went to another ghetto that was completely closed up. That was the Lodge ghetto. That was one of the most famous ghettos during the war, because these people were from everywhere, from every country that they came. And you're going to ask a question, how could a small area keep all these people? The Germans obviously had a method. As long as 10 died, 10 others came in. So there was always room. You understand?
And what people died from at that time?
From hunger. From hunger, from typhoid, from malnutrition. My mother died in the ghetto. She was only 38 years old.
And you, how old were you back then?
I was, when my mother died, I was about 15, 16. Yes, and I saw her die.
So you saw your mother die in front of you in the ghetto?
Absolutely, because my mother, they were, you know, we were well-to-do people before the war. We were not Rockefellers, but we were well-to-do people, you understand? So naturally, food, we always had food. And once you don't get that food, you know, you slum down and slum down. And, you know, the worst part of it is that we were dehumanized.
You were a number.
No, not that. We were dehumanized. We were not people. We were not even animals. We were nothing. You understand? Just to show you the cruelty, I can't go into every one of these things. But when my mother died of malnutrition, of TB, tuberculosis, from no food, you didn't even get a burial with a funeral. Do you understand?
Yeah.
And how do you think this process went? I don't know how you say it in English, but in Polish it's kanalizacja.
Okay, in the canalization.
You know what it is. When they collect all the, you know, the dirt and all the garbage and everything. And this was like it was like a barrel, you know, like an oil truck that you see. And on top of all this garbage, these human people were on top. Not, do you understand? Not even a burial. And when it came to the burial, one on top of the other, one on top of the other, in a massive grave, I don't know where mother is buried. I went there 100 times. Who knows? Do you understand?
Yeah.
So it's not just you yourself. It's everything around you that people don't realize. When they talk about the victim, it's a one. It's not. We were a family of about 100 people. One cousin was left. And he just passed away a few years ago.
And you. So you
and
were
me.
two
Right.
out of 100 to survive.
Out of 100 people. And my husband's side, the same thing. You know, we were all big families. So that's the first thing. And then after my mother died...
But did you keep with your family until the ghetto, or did they separate you? Because
No.
I'm surprised you were with your mother.
No, that was at first, because we were all bunched together in one room. Not only my mother, my uncles and my aunts. We're all in one room.
Men and women all together.
All in one room, you understand? Because they could only place you in that particular area. You cannot go somewhere else. This is where you're supposed to be. So if it's 10 people, 12 people, 3 people, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And I worked in the ghetto, and my mother worked in the ghetto. My uncles
Doing
worked.
what?
I was working in, well, how would I say it? In the straw resort. Straw, was straw. I was taking the straw from the fields and braiding it. My mother worked to sew the shoes. These were overshoes for the German soldiers, because, you know, Europe is cold, not like Santo Domingo. I had to get that one in.
Yeah, Europe was cold back then also,
Right.
more and winter, and they didn't have any. Actually, yeah, the concentration camps were used to do all to work for industries, IG Farben, for example, to do all the uniforms, the shoes, and so on.
Exactly. My uncles were tailors, so they worked in factories. But we didn't get any food. And God forbid, I'll give you for an example. I worked a half a day in the ghetto because I was underage, right? So I went to get all the supplies, the rations, okay. And there were soup kitchens, right? I remember there was one woman in our building that was sick already, she couldn't go out. And my mother says to me, go and get her soup. If you don't get it, she won't have it. So I went to get the soup. And it so happens it wasn't ready yet, so I waited. And you understand, we only had a little pot to fit one soup. God forbid, no one drop more. So it's just for the measurement of the soup. So finally the soup was ready. It happened to be a very good soup. Because usually it was just water.
Mm-hmm.
You understand?
Yeah, just boiled water with nothing,
Yeah.
right?
So I have the soup, and I'm holding the pot, and I'm ready to go, and somebody bumps into me, and the soup spills all over here on my breast. I was scolded. But the little that I still managed, I brought for the woman. Right?
Of course.
Yes. And then I couldn't go to work because I was all burned. But if I didn't go to work, I wouldn't get the soup.
Oh my goodness.
Do you understand the cruelty of it?
Definitely.
You know, it's just, I mean, you could make so many points. You can't go on every point. But, you know, I often thought and still think about it. How could cultured people who with high intelligence and authors and musicians and composers and you name it, how could you inflict something like that to other people? How could you do that? I still didn't get an answer to my questions. You know, it's ridiculous. When you see somebody that's laying on the floor sick, you don't ask what nationality are you, what religion do you have, you go and help. But how could people willingly put you through such torture and don't think that you're a person, not even an animal? You don't do that to an animal.
No.
And
couldn't you speak to the guards? Couldn't you try to take something human from them?
You are not allowed to ask. You have to understand. Let's assume that you are in a prison. Can you ask questions? Maybe today already. But you couldn't ask a question. If you were not treated like a person, what regard do they have for your question? It's ridiculous.
None.
And besides, at that point, as the days go by, and you get not used to it, but you have to live with all these miseries, you don't even have any questions. You accept your fate the way it comes. What else can you do? You can't get out nowhere, it's all barbed wire. Right? So I was there till 1944. And in 1944, I first went to Auschwitz. That's why I'm telling you this. My mother had died a week before that. And I was about the last transports from the Lodz ghetto to get out. And I was left with my aunt, with one of my aunts still. And so we came, to the wagons. First of all, that was not a train for humans. This was all for cattle. We didn't know where we're going, who we're going, what we're doing. At that point, we were so resigned, it didn't matter. Even if you want to ask, you don't even have the strength to ask. You understand?
Yeah.
So we went in these cattle cars with no windows, with no nothing, and there was a makeshift pail to go to alleviate yourself. I don't know how many we were in these cars. I really don't know. And we drove and drove and drove and drove. We didn't know where or what, nothing. Now we finally come to Auschwitz. We did not know it was Auschwitz. We didn't.
That's the worst concentration camp
We
of
didn't
the
know.
Second World War.
Everything was in the dark, everything. So now we come to Auschwitz, my aunt and I. So, of course, at that point we didn't know what we looked like anymore. But they took us to the showers. We did not know that the showers, some of them with gas. We didn't know. You understand? So lucky that we actually went to the showers.
And not the gas.
Yes.
That's true, because they used to have some of the concentration camp, and actually Birkenau, where you were,
Yes.
were the one where most people died. And actually the technique they used is they put all together in one big room looking like if you were taking the shower, and actually it was not water that was going out.
It was
but
gas. It was gas, but we didn't know. So I was lucky that it was actually a shower. They called it the lousing, that we should be clean and all that. At that point,
It doesn't matter.
it didn't.
It
Not
doesn't matter
that
anymore.
we
After
never
4
thought
years.
anymore about cleanliness. If you don't know how you're going to get your next piece of bread, are you going to think what you're going to take a shower or where?
No.
It's ridiculous. They dehumanize you. This is my point. Gradually, you understand? You cannot take somebody from one good thing and put them in a bad thing and get adjusted. But this was done systematically, that every day you got something else and you didn't even know what change it is. You just go along. And when I came to Auschwitz, they gave us a dress, just a dress, no underwear, nothing. My aunt was tall. Now you see how tall I am, right?
You're small.
So they gave me a long dress and her a short dress.
Oh, nice.
Do you understand how, even to the littlest thing? So of course we changed. Okay, now we're going to the barracks. We don't know nothing.
Did you see the inscription in the entrance door of Auschwitz?
No.
Arbeit macht frei.
No.
Work makes
No.
free.
This was the first phase of Auschwitz. That was not Birkenau.
Okay.
There were a few,
Yeah, it's the second one.
And-
Birkenau is the second one.
And another thing, to be honest with you, when I think about it now, did we ever look for anything? No, we were resigned already. Whatever
Resigned.
will be. So when we were in Auschwitz, we were in pritches, what they call them, bunk beds.
Yeah.
And in the middle there was like a, how should I say, like a stage, but it was just, here were the barracks, and there was in the middle like a podium, but all the way across. And there was a couple there. I'll never forget her face. Never.
The capo is the guard in the barracks, right?
Yes. But she was the one that was very skinny. She almost looked like a witch. Very red hair. Very red. And she walked back and forth with the, and if you make a sound, bingo, whatever. And she was singing opera.
Singing opera.
Yeah, she was singing opera. That's right.
Wow.
And back and forth, she was hitting us and this, and you can't say a word. Anything, you made one move, you're punished. What is that to move? At that point, you just lay there. And every single day, I think it must have been 4 o'clock in the morning, they had a Zählappell. You know what a Zählappell is?
No.
They take you out and they put you in fives. They count you, God forbid if you should escape. Where would you escape to?
No.
First you had no strength, but right across my face. And then I fell, and I got up, of course, I don't even know why until today. What did I do? I don't know. But anyway, this was the thing, and this was 3 times a day. In the morning, 4 o'clock I think it was, or 5,